J.J. Rawlings, former president of Ghana, who passed on recently. It's time for the paper review now, and let's take a look at the front pages of Nigerian newspapers and see what the headlines are this morning. I have with me in the studio public affairs analyst Olade Rio, as well as broadcast journalist and author Funke Treasure Durodala. Nice to see you both.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank God it's Friday. Yeah. Okay, let's begin with Daily Times newspaper. Daily Times says, Nigeria on a path to growth. Right, this quite interesting headline there, really inspiring and motivating. Nigeria on path to growth, all right. The details of how it is certainly will be in the story. From there, let's go to Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint says, NEF on restructuring. Northern Elders Forum, that's what NEF is. North won't succumb to other interests. Alleges plot to weaken region ahead of 2023. And then ready to discuss all elements of our coexistence. That is what the Blueprint has this morning. Okay, Blueprint newspaper. Business Day is next now, and it says stocks gaining over 1 trillion in one day. It triggers NSE circuit breaker. All right, stocks gaining over 1 trillion in one day triggers NSE circuit breaker. All right, that's in business on Business Day. Daily Trust newspaper is next now. It's talking about the harassment in Ghana. Federal government Mulls evacuating Nigerian traders from Ghana. Shops sealed for over a year. Relevant MDAs to facilitate return. And bringing them back, not the best option. An expert is offering an opinion there. Federal government Mulls evacuating Nigerian traders from Ghana. All right, I guess my guests would like to talk about this when we open discussion shortly. Leadership Friday, or Friday Leadership, is the next one we're looking at right now. Second wave of COVID-19. Federal government tackles worship centers over breach of protocols. This is really troubling, I must say. Federal government tackles worship centers over breach of protocols. And some riders there says no relaxation of rules during Yuletide. On getting vaccine, a matter of utmost concern. Oshibajo is saying this as a vice president. NANs seek fee waiver for students in federal state institutions. And that's a follow-up or fallout of the COVID-19. Electronic transactions rose to 67% during the lockdown. The CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, is revealing this. All right. Okay, that's the Leadership newspaper. National Economy is next right now. 4 stadia, Tafawa Balewa Square to be concessioned. The federal government is revealing this, and it says Mulls commercialization of River Basin Development Authorities adopts alternative dispute resolution to attract foreign investors. Okay, all that on the front page of the National Economy. The Nation newspaper is next now, and it says 753 Nigerian traders beg for evacuation from Ghana. Our lives under threat. Businesses shut. Federal government to address complaints. Okay, this is getting even louder by the day. 753 Nigerian traders beg for evacuation from Ghana. All right, it's still part of what we'll talk about. This day newspaper is next now, and it says federal government, WHO target 20% of Nigeria's population for COVID-19 vaccination. Cautions against trips to US, UK, and others. We're committed to getting vaccines, says Oshibajo, that's the vice president of Nigeria. Okay, that's on COVID-19. And the last one we're looking at right now is News Direct newspaper. Nigerian News Direct says lottery scam. EFCC recovers 4.1 billion naira for lottery regulator to partner NLRC in fighting lottery scam. Okay, that's the News Direct newspaper now. Okay, let's get into some of the discussion we have lined up. We will just touch here and there. The story on the front page of Daily Trust as well as the Nation newspaper points to the outcry by Nigerians in Ghana. Well, let me start with you, Olade. The point there is this has been on for some time now, and we saw the president of Ghana visit Nigeria to meet with his Nigerian counterpart. as part of their discussion, this issue came up and they agreed on how to resolve it at the diplomatic level. But we're still hearing these agitations on the streets.
This should never have been at all in the first place. Having in mind the dictates of the ECOWAS treaty. Yep. And then for all the meetings that have been held at different levels, if things are still at this point, for me, it's a failure of diplomacy, and it's not right. I wouldn't say, I wasn't a small boy when Ghanaians were in Nigeria, no. And then they were asked to go back home, but not in this fashion. And then the circumstances then and now are very different. Again, that they now had to impose unrealistic fines or fees on them of over $1 million before they could run their businesses is inhuman. I mean, if they had that kind of money in the first place, they would have left Nigeria. All I'll simply say is, when things get to this point, what do? You go back home. It may not be better for them to come back. So
you will be in support of them coming back home?
Yes, it may not be better for them to come back at the beginning, but they have to find their bearing. Because retaining there, where they're being threatened, they're not any safe. I mean, what if it becomes fatal and then lives start getting lost? What do we do? So I think that by the government, at different levels now, more importantly at the local government level, to be able to absorb them and offer them whatever
palliatives.
Is it palliative now?
We're used to that word now.
Saving,
assistance or whatever.
Assistance
okay.
That will give them soft landing, whereby they can restart their lives again.
But I wonder how easy that will be for Nigerians
who have been there
for 10, 15, 20 years.
It will be a possibility.
Yes. I see everything rises and falls on leadership. I think this is a failure of leadership. You've said it's a failure of diplomacy. I think in addition to there's a failure of leadership, and who would have thought that Nigeria will find itself in this sort of leadership crisis with a country like Ghana? First of all, we've been sister nations for a while. Secondly, I mean, consider the huge size of Nigeria and, and the size of pontificating that we're the giant of Africa. And when the dwarf begins to look the giant in the face and tells the giants, this way, you know that something is wrong. So it's unfortunate. And on top of that, all that Nigerians are going through in Ghana, you find that all is not well at home. So it's pretty much like, go fix your home.
Yeah,
go fix your house, fix it and get out of here. So Yoruba people say, in other
let me help you.
Okay.
That is when
no, I want to say it in Yoruba the way she said. Hey, okay.
I imagine what Nigerians in Ghana be feeling like, you know what? It wouldn't have come to this if we had an enabling environment in Nigeria. Just yesterday, I saw some videos going viral about how a local government in Abuja is terrorizing business owners. And you could see some of them were close to tears. It's on Twitter. It's everywhere.
Highly frustrated. I saw one of the videos by a lady
if you don't have a good business environment at home and you decide to go out of Nigeria, then they victimize you and say, why are you leaving? And then you go there and they're treating you like that. You just feel completely frustrated.
And the government talks about the ease of doing business that,
And you believe
they
that?
talked about. Well, the point there is when it comes to the ratings, one way or the other, whether we believe or we don't believe, Nigeria has been, faring a little.
Let me tell you.
We're not faring anything
but we jumped to one or two places.
When you say ease of doing business, what are the parameters? What are the metrics? To start with, we still don't have power. We've not gotten a power issue straightened out. After spending several trillions of naira, we're still playing kalo with it. So where do you now see the ease? And then you don't easily walk into offices, get things registered or secure licenses, certifications within any scheduled time frame.
All right. Now, the point there is, on one hand, the point there is, this policy by Ghana that is making or creating a lot of agitation.
It's deliberate.
Is it just against Nigerians? Because we don't seem to hear from other
Have you had the Mulls complaining? Or you've had people from Zimbabwe complaining?
But why is it
that Nigerians? Let me tell you, when you go out, when the impression is given that we are giants, whereas we are very far from being towards. Now, it has earned us enmity. And that is the consequence of what we're seeing now.
Yeah, but we hear sometimes nationals become scared when Nigerians arrive because they seem to take over everything.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, by the nature, by our nature, we're quite assertive people.
Exactly.
Across our tribal divides, we're quite assertive.
Yeah.
We take over everywhere we go. We marry
Very
their
pushful.
girls.
Very
We
pushful.
marry their
Yeah.
girls
Yeah.
and take over.
You marry, compromise their
No,
girls.
Olade, I won't agree with you on that.
And so
We
you
just
know-
marry. We don't compromise. We marry. And then we become part of the family. Because,
Honestly, in South Africa,
Okay.
we do it everywhere.
yeah, exactly. And then we take care of them more than their men take care of them. And then they
And
prefer
that brings-
us.
and that
Yeah, they
brings some
prefer us at the end
enemies.
of the day. So it's not our fault. It's not our fault. Oh, okay. We have a book here I'd like us to look at. However, there's so many
it a book
stories.
or our book?
Yeah, our book. Our book. But anyway, let's get into the book because there are some issues I'd like us to talk about there. So the papers, of course, there's so many issues on the paper. Now, memories of grandma. Now, when you talk about grandma, for our generation that we had connect with our mothers and grandmothers one way or the other, this autobiography by Funke Treasurer Drodolai it takes us back home to I remember my childhood, good old days. Funke, what is the idea behind this? You must have had a great time with your grandma.
Oh, yes, I did.
And going through the beginning of the chapter of this book, I was seeing myself back home in the village,
Okay,
you
so
know.
it's your story.
Well, it's her story. I mirrored through her. Talk to us basically about this.
Well, I like the fact that you said you saw yourself in the story. That's intentional. I used my story to talk about a particular era in Nigeria, the 80s, the early 80s. I also used it to talk about the concept of grandmothers being custodians of our heritage. I wanted people to see what life was like back then and what childhood growing up was. This is a childhood memoir, in other words, an autobiography. Yeah, but I also wanted to talk about the identity, our cultural identity.
Yeah.
I wanted us to remember the
Our
little things that are
uniqueness,
lost
yeah.
today in how we lived our lives before the advent of this globalization
Civilization.
and civilization. Yes.
Well, we have always been civilized in our own way.
But you see,
Precisely
there's-
the
there's-
point.
the mistake was made by our ancestors.
Okay.
What they had as civilization, they surrendered it and then took over what they called Western civilization.
Westernization.
They were wrong, and they are still wrong till today. Now, I could see myself in that book. It could have been my book as well, because I had a grandma, and my first day in primary school, she followed me.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
She followed me to primary school.
And you'll be the envy of all the other students.
I wasn't the only one.
Wow.
So many grandmas came.
Okay.
But you see, the point was, at the point they were not living, they started crying. So they had to banish
Grandmothers from coming.
like that. But coming about that, the beauty of all this, the love that we enjoyed with grandmas compared to with our parents, who because they had a job to do, to train us.
Yeah.
But
they also
grandmas-
end up spoiling us as well.
Grandmas, they pamper. That is the missing link.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for my daughter, she didn't come around to see her grandma from my side. Otherwise, she wouldn't know what she missed. Okay?
I remember my grandma keeping a goat for me
Wow.
for over 2 years. And she will always say, I have a goat for you. Always come. When any day you come, we'll kill the goat so you can...
Mine was chicken.
Oh, I see. Really interesting. All right, now, Funke, the issue, this book, I couldn't stop when I started reading and going.
It's always the case. People can't stop once they
I've not
start.
finished reading it,
You know how to
but the
call
point
it?
there is,
You say it's unputdownable.
yeah, it's unputdownable, as you put it. But generally, what struck you the most to come up with the idea of this?
I
book?
recall I was a presenter back then in Radio Nigeria. I was anchoring the breakfast show. And at that time, we're having some sort of crisis, a crisis with the next generation, They'll see you, they'll walk past you and they'll say, good morning. They will want to give you something and give to you with the left hand. They will see an elder passing by. They won't say, please let me help you with this. They will sit down and let an elder stand up. And I went like, no, it wasn't like this when I was your age. So I started writing then. I started putting things down, basically to correct what I saw then. And then it started having a life of its own, and it became a book. And so the first experimental edition came out when I was in South Africa for my master's. Then I found out, oh, wow, it's looking good. And so then I came back home and did the second edition and the public presentation. And it was well received. I remember that some girls who read it kept asking their mom when she's going to write part 2. And like, no, it's not Nollywood. There's no part 2.
Okay. Now, there is much talk about grandma.
I should write Memories of Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to write the Memories of Grandpa.
There are stories of Grandpa.
But there are
here.
stories of Grandpa
of course,
here, but the title has to be Grandma, and it goes more to. But basically, if we have to bring everything forward, some of these issues that are part of our culture, who we are, that stabilized our societies, grounded us, that's why when it comes to balance, people had that. It's missing now, and people now, the millennials will say, this is old school.
Oh, yeah. Now, good enough that she wrote a book. When I observed the erosion of the Yoruba language, which is the warehouse for our culture, tradition, and every other value system, I established a Center for Yoruba Language Revival and Revitalization. Okay? And I can tell you now that what we have lost massively is the value system.
Right.
And
that's
is
the
why
value here.
That's why today some of us who are ingrained, and who are these things, who are trained and passed through this school, who are milled through this school of grandma, grandpas, what we see now, we find them highly unacceptable. Unfortunately, majority of us are too busy, too engrossed with making a living and couldn't be bothered. And there should be many more of these on the streets, recounting how we came up. Perhaps we can influence the present generation, and then they can carry it on, because the major problem that we have is loss of value. In a way that today, everything is about how much money you have to throw around. When I was growing up, it wasn't so.
And that's the Omoluabi philosophy.
Exactly, yeah. And let me tell you, in Abeokuta way back, if a policeman should visit your family compound, everyone in that compound, we have a long time telling the story of what the man came to do and why he had to be in your compound. But not anymore. Yeah. People go from jail to church for Thanksgiving now.
Two things I'd quickly like to point out there. I see that increasingly we're losing the meaning of some words and expressions in our Yoruba language. One of the things I wanted to correct in this third edition is the ni for nogudu that you find in the Yoruba alphabet nursery rhymes. Okay. I saw that I realized that people didn't even know what nogudu means anymore. And that our fashion labels are now beginning to conflate nogudu with kembe. It's a form of trouser in Yoruba land. Kembe is big. What we have trending now is not kembe, it's nogudu. And there's a saying which is captured in this book that nogudu ni ojeka mani to so pani loring. Right?
Did you get that?
So
no, I am floating. Yeah.
Maybe
you take me to the classes after now.
It just means that the clothing, the style, the trouser style of nogudu is the reason why you wouldn't know the person who has a problem with elephantiasis of the scrotum. Right? So you see the shape of that trousers. It is
conveniently warehouses.
It goes down in the middle. So if you have a problem with your scrotum because you're nursing something, then it makes you walk around freely. That's what they're calling kembe now. It's not kembe.
Not kembe. Kembe
so
different.
One of the things I tackled here, again, you talk about our food. If you ask a regular average girl or boy in Lagos right now to name 5 different vegetables from their cultural backgrounds, they won't be able to do it. Yeah. They probably say ugu and greens, and that's it. Tell them to give you 5 proverbs in their language. They probably struggle with one.
They don't even speak languages anymore.
The Nollywood has not been helpful at all. The word Agbalagba, you and I know it means elder. Okay. They created Agbalagbi, which is street slang.
I think that was just a slang.
But there's a conflict. Okay. But there's a conflict. Some people grew up hearing Agbalagbi and Agbalagba. They wouldn't know which is correct. So we had
so what is Agbalagbi?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a street slang.
It's a slang for Agbalagba. You know, like a very swagalicious
Agbalagba. No, listen.
Did you hear that?
I understand.
Swagalicious. So from Agbalagba to Agbalagbi, Agbalagbo to Agbalagbo.
Okay. Instead of saying Baba Agba, they say Baba Baba.
Those are just street slangs. I love them.
But the point is, frankly, it is even. It is better off with Yoruba language that is when it comes to the population and all, and Yoruba is more robust than other smaller ethnic groups that their languages are going extinct and all of that. You all have that structure and all of that.
Let me tell you, today, by the turn of the century, a lot more languages will have gone to extinction. Why?
That's right.
Then the younger ones are not being socialized.
Yeah.
You know, that language, and in some cases now, the last speaker will die. Some of the languages are existing today at the realm of books.
Yeah.
So we have to address this issue. That was why I took on myself to start the Yoruba Center. And we've done considerably well.
All right.
Not minding that funding has been a headache.
Yeah. Finally, before I let Funke, there's a workbook here for this.
Yeah, because
are this for the schools?
Yes, because I wanted our young ones to read and comprehend properly.
Okay.
So you find in the workbook, you find teacher interaction and parental interaction as well. I want parents to have conversations with the children when they read this book. Okay. I want the children to read, go to the workbook and ask their parents questions.
Okay.
I want the teachers to engage them in classes.
So
for instance,
mental exercises.
Yes, there are quite a lot of exercises, vocabularies that they need to enrich their vocabulary. That's why we have a lot of Agbalagbi and Agbabagbi. So they need to know that.
Okay.
And then, of course, the music side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a CD coming with it.
All right. We might have a second leg of this discussion. I'm really, and the production is really nice. Good stuff, quality stuff, and all of that. Thank you very much, Funke, for all of this. And we wish you well on the project you're putting together
and
too.
I hope when you are reading through this book, you won't bite your tongue.
Oh no,
pronouncing some names.
No, there's a glossary.
The author is here. She's a phone call away, so I can call to say, okay, tell me this Agbalagba, Agbalagbi, All right, thank you so much, Funke Trasho-Dorodola, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and thanks for this project as well.
Thank you.
Wish you well. Thank you. Oladunde Ario, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Right. You're watching TVC Breakfast. We were going through the paper review and also a very interesting book here, Memories of Grandma, that takes us back into the good old days, as Oladunde Ario will put it. And